You're with Julian on the Brown Notes, and a lot of good new music coming out now. Honestly, the new Dark Side album is amazing, and unfortunately I'm not reviewing any of that incredible new music today, just clearing up a couple of albums that I've got. So OsamaSon Jump Out, called Amari Deshawn Middleton from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, is the internet's it rapper in that sort of post cloud rap, post Playboi Carti sort of era, where he's developed a feverish online following. This is his third album, but it seems to be his prominent album, and it's got a lot more attention than his previous releases outside of his zone. I'm not going to review the whole thing because there's about 18 tracks, and they're not only similar, but they're very short, so it would be a tough ask to review every track on this album. So the previous two albums obviously generated a fair amount of buzz. OsamaSon in 23 and Flex Musics in 23 as well, both in the same year, and this one came out just at the end of January. And it all occupies a very similar space. It's got this sub 2 minute runtime, which seems to be, have a 40-second intro and then a 30-second track. Not so much here, I don't think. He's got a style which is, for me, very post Chief Keef, post Playboi Carti, very melodic. This is very melodic music where you pay much less attention to the content of the lyrics than the actual lyrical flow being quite hooky. Very melodic synths on this as well. Pretty much everything is around 2 minutes across the whole album, and one of the facets of the tracks is compression destroying bass. If you understand how compression works in music, you can hear it very well on that opening track, which is one of the best ones on their Southside. Whenever the bass hits, it just reduces the level of volume of everything else, and very auto-tuned vocals. A lot of people are going to hate this. I certainly did not. I think Chief Keef is the originator of his style here a lot, and the rest would probably come from something like Woke Up Like This by Playboi Carti, who himself has become an authority figure for a lot of this guy is 21 years old, so obviously at the very start. The beats are very much in that sort of rattling post-trap style of percussion, lots of heavy distortion. Virtually all the songs have the same template, which is for better or worse, because it does make the album quite cohesive. It's a good stoner album. It's a good album to put on in the background, but if you actually stare at it, it falls apart a bit. It's got this sort of fever dream DIY aesthetic to it. The production seems to have been split across a number of people. I'd be interested to know how much of his music he does produce, because that would be a strong part of it. It's head music really, rather than sort of focusing on individual tracks. I wouldn't pull many out. I thought the first one, Southside, does what a couple of the best tracks on the album do, which is it feels like it's like a revolving 30 seconds of a song that never ends, and you're just dipping into it for a little bit. The Most Woke Up Like This track I thought was Made Some Plans, which was pretty decent, and the bass lines on this can be quite similar. A few of the tracks had a very similar sort of sub-bass sound, but I thought Break the News had a really good sort of roaming bass. I love the police siren-y synths on She Need a Ride. And the other, if I'm going to say this is born out of Chief Keef and Playboi Carti, the third in this holy trinity would be one of my favourite acts of the 2010s, the criminally underrated Salem, who themselves dipped their toe into rap music on King Knight, their immortal debut album, And their second album 10 years later was fantastic, and they get no credit, but they do get mentioned when music like this, that is kind of analogous to Witch House, the genre which they are most associated with, particularly with that rattling trap beats and some very distorted synths and vocal melodies going on. Even like a track, The Whole World Is Free, which I thought was a standout on the album, it sounds a bit like MGMT doing Kids, that sort of synth line in it. It's probably the most hooky track on the album. Nachos, nachos, is that what he's saying? And again, it sounds like you're dipping into something that is continually like a cyclone just going round and round that never ends. I did like it, and I like listening to it, but I'd like listening to it a lot more as background music than as foreground music. I think that he needs to be a little bit more ambitious in the formation of his tracks, because virtually every track here follows the same template, and there isn't much ambition. I mean, it's a wall of sound, and it's a good one, with all of the different musical elements cohabiting well in the tracks to create, something bigger than the sum of their parts. But I wouldn't have minded seeing him push the arrangements and the instrumentation into varied territory, as every track is replaceable by each other. So I don't think it's quite as good as people like Pitchfork are saying it's great and so on, but I still think it's very good, and I still think it's interesting. If I look back to I'm an old head, and if I look back at the new rappers that have come through over the last sort of 7 or 8 years, and I look at someone like Pop Smoke and his debut 2 mixtapes I had on repeat for a couple of years, and found the whole thing having much more personality and being much more compelling than this is. This does still feel like it's got most of its feet in that internet frenzy era, but it's still good. I'll give OsamaSon Jump Out a 7 out of 10.